Scully.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to offer my congratulations to the Honourable Member for Penistone and Stocksbridge for securing this debate. I was happy to support that, and for the incredibly powerful, moving speech. It was a fantastic job to put that on record. And I'd like to congratulate Women's Aid as well for this important, hard-hitting report of 19 child homicides. It's difficult reading. It's always difficult reading. It's difficult to hear these examples, but hear them we must, because the individual cases show that domestic abuse isn't just an issue. There are 19 real children whose lives have been cut short, another 2 seriously harmed, 3 mothers killed, 7 fathers who subsequently committed suicide, and 4 fathers convicted and imprisoned. And there are likely to be many, many more people directly touched by these tragic events: siblings, grandparents, surviving wives, family and friends. All of those men were known to agencies. 11 of the 12 were known to the police as well. Now, I've had a number of constituents approach me about their custody cases, with some mothers unhappy, some fathers feeling that they've been treated badly, and grandparents unable to get a look in. Whatever the rights and wrongs of those individual cases, it's clear that the only thing that should be done, the right thing to do, is to put the child first, absolutely at the centre of decision making. There's many good examples of good practice in family courts, including my closest court in Croydon. But there's much more, as we've heard, that can be done and lessons to be learned. There are already, in a number of cases, protective screens, video links, separate waiting rooms and separate entrances where they're available where appropriate. But as we've heard, that does not always work. The Women's Aid report goes on to detail a survey that they've done of people that have gone through the family court system, pointing to areas of real concern, with 55% of women saying that they had no access to any protections measures in the court. Extraordinarily, 25% had been cross-examined by their former partner during the proceedings, including one woman where she described it: the man who had raped her, beaten her and abused her over a 6-year period, interrogated her for 3 hours in the court. Can you imagine what that poor lady must have been going through, revisiting all of that again? 39% were verbally or physically abused by their former partner while actually on the family court estate. 44% reported that the judge granted child contact to the father when they knew the children had been directly abused by the father. And 76% reported that the judge granted child contact to the father when they knew the children had witnessed domestic abuse. I want to touch on 2 cases. Firstly, I'd like to add a 20th child to that list, Ellie Butler, who lived her short life in Sutton in my constituency. Her parents met in a club in Sutton in March 2006. Ben Butler had a criminal record, including violence, attempted robbery, intimidation of witness. He also had a conviction for assaulting his former girlfriend. Within weeks, Jenny Gray was pregnant with Ellie. Now, the first time Butler was left alone with Ellie, when just 6 weeks old, she sustained minor burns to her forehead and hand. Shortly afterwards, again, as this was brushed off as an accident, Butler again looked after Ellie. That evening, he took her to St Helier Hospital, our local hospital, where she was diagnosed with injuries that suggested she may have been violently shaken. He was arrested on suspicion of GBH, and the London Borough of Sutton started proceedings to have her taken into care, Ellie taken into care. In January 2008, His Honour Judge Atkins found that Butler had been responsible for both sets of injuries and ruled out Ellie's mother as a long-term carer. In August of that year, he awarded temporary custody to Ellie's maternal grandparents, Neil and Linda. Butler went to prison, during which time Jenny Gray discovered she was pregnant again and hid the birth from the local authorities. In October 2009, Butler was released on bail and walked free on appeal after 3 judges ruled that his conviction was unsafe. But the quashing of the conviction didn't automatically reverse the ruling that the parents were unfit to care for Ellie. So Butler went to war with the authorities, and 3 years later, Lady Justice Hogg made a decision that was to prove fatal for Ellie. Not only did she return Ellie to the parents' custody, brushing aside convictions, commenting that the violent behaviour that they related to wasn't directed at children, but she went on to write in her judgment, "It's seldom that I see a happy end in public law proceedings. It's a joy for me to oversee the return of a child to her parents." Ellie's grandfather, Neil Gray, was said to have warned her, "You'll have blood on your hands," and how prescient he was. In addition to the judgment, Mrs. Justice Hogg made an order that meant all files held by the authorities should be amended to include a prominent reference to the fact that Butler and Gray had been exonerated of any blames for Ellie's injuries, and effectively that they should proactively inform the agencies of his innocence. Now, what can the agencies make of that? How can they be denied the ability to review what was happening with a clean sheet restored to these people? It wasn't long before after Ellie went back, that she suffered a broken shoulder, and the parents sought no medical help as they sought to hide things from the authorities. Then in October 2013, Ellie was found dead at the hands of Ben Butler. The parents concocted a plot to cover up the real cause of death, even sending Ellie's younger sibling to actually discover the body as part of the plot. Now, Ellie's grandparents haven't given up fighting for her. They're fighting hard. They've been trying to fight hard for the custody of the two children. Linda, unfortunately, Ellie's grandmother, died at the day that the trial started. But Neil, the grandfather, continues to speak out against the ruling, which led to Sutton Council and other agencies unable to do their job, and they did do a very good job, but simply with our hands tied. My heart goes out to Neil and his other grandchild. I was able to catch a moment with the Honourable Member for Carshalton and Wallington, who's had to leave the debate, and we remain, both of us, open for Neil to approach, and we'd like to support him in any way we can. Another case is far too close to home for me. Someone I know very well, and the situation is ongoing, so I won't be too specific. A few years ago, Anna met someone who she later discovered had two children from a previous relationship. The mother and children had ended up going to a refuge, changing their name and moving away secretly. Even though social services were closely involved, he managed to track them down within months through trawling the electoral rolls, amongst other things. Now, Anna found herself soon in a very controlling relationship. We've heard about control this afternoon, stripping her away from her family and friends. He used drugs and was violent on occasions. She eventually had a child, but the situation continued to deteriorate, affecting the child's upbringing and stability. Anna was helped by her partner's mother, eventually to leave and start again on her own. But that wasn't the end. Anna found a tracker in her car. She was continually harassed and stalked, as were family members as well. Agencies were aware. The police was aware. She was in and out of police stations to give statements, but he would pound on the door at night, jumping over the back fence, smashing the glass to get in the door. But Anna's had to learn so much for herself about the system. Her former partner has a good solicitor. He knows how to make the best of the system, not for the child, but for the solicitor's client. He couldn't apply for non-molestation order whilst he was on police bail, or she couldn't apply. While they were out to arrest him, the police were out to arrest him, her family couldn't find out whether he was actually detained because of data protection issues. Now, the police has her on an alert list with a promised 5-minute response rate. Unfortunately, the last time it took 25 minutes. Now, we can understand, obviously, about police pressure, but the promise of 5 minutes and 25 minutes makes all the difference when you're trying to plan for such an eventuality. At least if we know it's 25 minutes, you can try and deal with that the best we can. Anna has the support of both families, her own and her partner's. Her parents discovered that they were grandparents quite a long way after she was stripped from the family. And they now have a wonderful, happy grandchild, and Anna has become the most amazing mother in the face of such adversity, and her child is thriving. She's lucky. Anna could have easily found herself on the Women's Aid list. I'm so delighted that she hasn't, although the matter is nowhere closed, but please, let's do more to support the work of the groups associated with Women's Aid. Let's do more to improve the response for people like Anna and children like Ellie. We can't let them down. I know what it's like for looking at families and how helpless they feel in these sort of cases. I can't even begin to imagine actually being involved at the heart of that abuse, as we've heard about Claire. So it's really important that the police, the agencies, and of course the family courts do everything they can, and we work to make those agencies and family courts work, that these tragedies cannot happen again. Thank you.